Hello, financial coaches. Good morning to some of you. Good afternoon to some others, depending on where you are located. I wanted to do a video about designing a program. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kelsa. I am the admin of this group. I created it years ago now. Never imagined we would have so many amazing financial coaches participate and collaborate with one another. And so it has definitely exceeded expectations in that way. So thank you for being here if you are here. I'm also the creator of the Financial Coach Academy course. As Jill shared in her video last week, we also have a new program that we're launching here soon called the Financial Coaching Toolkit, which has almost 60 different exercises that we do with our clients on a regular basis. Definitely part of the program design that I'm going to be rolling out to you today in this video. Hey, Candy. And let's see, we also do different events throughout the year. So a retreat for female financial coaches, the symposium, which is normally in May. It's coming up so soon and we had to postpone it until later in the year. We are feeling pretty confident that we'll be able to pick a date here soon. So for those of you who are on pins and needles waiting for the new date for the symposium, we will be setting that here soon. So stay tuned for that. So lots of good things. So I have been a financial coach for I think almost 12 years now. Sometimes I forget, a long time. And one of the things that nobody ever taught me, I just sort of had to figure it out on my own, is how to actually design a program. So I am a huge fan of the program model. And what that means is not allowing people to sort of just set the pace of when they meet with you, sort of do drop-in sessions. A program can be 2 months long, it can be a year long, it can be everything in between. But the idea is that there is a level of commitment that is required by the client, but also by you, the coach, to work with them for a long time through the hard times, the good times, all of that. So that's essentially what a program is, okay? We've been getting a lot of questions in the group from some of the newer members, which is amazing, asking questions like, how long do you guys meet with clients for? Or what's the right length of a session? Or sort of asking about the cadence, right? So the frequency, how often are you meeting with clients? What's the purpose of those meetings? And I appreciate the question because I understand where it's coming from. It's sort of just gathering all this information and trying to comb through, where do I even start, right? So I want to dive into how to create a program, because the reality is all of those questions are all related to a program design. So I could tell you exactly how often I meet with my clients and how long each session is and the cadence of those sessions. But the reality is that may or may not serve you well as a coach. So what I need to be doing for my clients might be and is likely very different than you. And same with everybody in the group. So as great as those questions are, and I don't want anyone to refrain from asking those questions, the reality is that you could get an answer that is a really specific answer and it's accurate and it's true to that coach that answers, but is actually just gonna, distract you or not serve you well or actually cause more confusion. So my goal with this is to show you, is to essentially answer your question by giving you the thought process to follow to answer it for yourself. The other thing that I would like to request is we will save this video in the units section of the group. So when you guys see somebody ask a question how often should I be meeting with my clients? Or how long is your session for? How long do you meet with clients for? Tag them in this video so that they can really think through it from start to finish in a way that's going to serve them best and not cause a whole bunch of confusion for them, okay? Or they're going to try and fit into your model of you meeting with your clients, excuse me. So let's talk about this. So the very first thing that you have to do, and there's a lot of other videos about this as well, is really identify your ideal client. And you don't have to have this perfectly figured out. I posted this comment yesterday on someone's post about the ideal client. It's really normal that when you're first starting out, you can refine your ideal client to a certain degree, but not fully. It likely can't get 100% perfect when you're first starting out. So there's a number of exercises you can do to really help you figure out who your ideal client is, who you want to serve. We talk about all of these extensively, both in the academy, but also in the unit section of this group. So I don't want to spend too much time on it today, but just know that like the first thing is to really try to hone in on who it is that you want to serve. And what happens is cognitively, you can sort of like think about that and process that at the beginning, but you likely will only get it to like 60 or 70% accuracy. And what I mean by that is you can't figure it out to be perfect until you just start meeting with people. So you really try to hone in and refine it a little bit, maybe to 60 or 70% accuracy, and then you get it closer and you start perfecting it through experience and through meeting with clients and figuring out what you like and don't like and who you can truly like help and you love to help and maybe who you're just not that equipped to help at the end of the day, right? So the idea is that, you know, ideal client is sort of a journey. You can get it only so close at the beginning, and then you really just have to start helping people and continuously refine it through experience. And then it gets even more and more perfected. So the next question that I want you to think about is, once you know who your ideal client is, what is the chief financial problem that client, is experiencing? So is it debt? Is it no budget? Is it conflicts with a spouse? Is it, no goals, but, they don't have any of those other problems. Maybe they don't have any debt, but they're just like winging it, right? So really try to hone in on what is the chief problem or struggle that client is having, okay? So let's say, for this example, that the client's chief problem is debt, okay? That they're in debt and they can't get out of it, or they get out of it and then they find themselves right back in it, or they just sort of feel overwhelmed by their debt. The next question you want to ask yourself is brainstorm all of the causes of debt, okay? And the reason that you want to do this step is really important. It really helps you to further refine who your ideal client is. So there are some causes that you can absolutely help with. And then chances are there are some causes of debt that maybe is not a good match for you and who you want to be helping. So let me give you an example. You could say a person's in debt because they just don't live on a budget. They don't know where their money is going. They have no plan in place with their money. And maybe that is something that you're like, okay, I eat that problem for breakfast, right? Like that I got. Maybe they're in debt because of a whole bunch of like medical bills that are showing up on their credit, okay? And maybe helping somebody clean up their credit or, negotiate or dispute on their credit report is not your area of expertise. There are some coaches that is their thing, that's their jam, and then other coaches not. So the idea is, by identifying a whole bunch of different causes, what you're going to be able to do is identify who can I help, like what is the root cause of the problem first and foremost, which is really important, but also, are there problems that I just can't help with? What if the cause of that is like they lost their job and they have no income? This is a great example for me personally. And again, you don't have to adopt the same philosophy. I'm just using this to illustrate my point. I always say that I am not an income coach. So I can help my clients with side hustles and negotiating, for a higher pay, come review time and that sort of thing. But if a client loses their income and they're like, they don't have a paycheck, they don't have a job, and it's causing them to get in debt, my typical advice is to, instead of spending money on me, to spend that same amount of money on a resume writer or an interview specialist or a recruiter or any of these type, go learn a new skill so that you can then start making more money and leverage that. That is just my opinion. And it comes down to the fact that the main cause of their debt is not something that I typically help people solve. You've got an income problem and I want you to go, replace your job or something like that, and then come back to me and I'm going to help you use that income to make progress on your debt, right? So the other thing is, like, let's say they've got a job and everything's going fine there. They just really have no idea why they have debt. They just can't seem to get control of it. They can't seem to wrangle it. Then that is something that I do help with. So knowing all the different causes of debt, then the idea is you can really hone in on the ones that you help people solve and the ones that you don't want to help people solve. And that is great for your marketing on your website, on your social media, so that you are always sort of like helping people decide, are you the right coach for them? or not. And it's really great. We talk about this all the time in marketing, is to help people get off of the fence. So really, if people are sitting on your fence, they're not sure, should I hire them? Should I not hire them? The idea is to get them off your fence. And by stating like, this is what I'm all about, and this is who I help, and this is who I can't really help, or those types of things, that helps a person get off of your fence. Either they're going to lean in more and be like, oh, this is my girl. I want to hire her so much. Or, you know what, this is not the right coach for me because she just let me know that in her marketing that we're not a good fit. And that's a beautiful gift you just gave that person. So really being clear on those types of things really does help you, I promise. It can be a little scary when you're first starting out, but I promise you it's a good thing. So you've identified the chief problem, right? And then you've brainstormed all of the different causes of that problem so that you can gain clarity for yourself on who you help and who you can't help. Now, the next step is to go back to that main problem and say, what are all of the skills a person needs in order to overcome this problem? And this is where oftentimes in the academy, when we do this exercise together and we start brainstorming, and we will do this together as a group, and we brainstorm all the causes of something, and then we brainstorm all the skills that a person needs in order to overcome that problem. Usually it's sort of like a mind is blown because there are so many things that we can do for our clients, you guys. And it's not as simple as like, well, you just get out of debt, right? It is so much more profound than that. So think about, what skills does a person need to learn in order to, move through getting out of debt. So it's awareness of like, what is their debt? What does it look like, right? So this is a very normal step most of us know to take with our clients, have them make a list of all of their balances, the interest rates, the payment amounts, that sort of thing. It's really important for awareness. A lot of the times my clients specifically don't really know what they've got out there and how much they owe and what the total is and what the interest rates are and all of that. So awareness is one of those skills, right? Dedication or a commitment to paying it off. Learning things like value-based spending so that they are living on a budget and putting their money behind what's important to them. Goal setting is a skill that they probably need to learn. We teach our clients that there's 4 different ways to get out of debt. And so we teach them those different philosophies so that they can pick a strategy. So that's a skill, having a strategy in place and knowing that there's a strategy that they can follow. That is a skill that we want them to learn, right? What about delayed gratification? Communication with a spouse. It's going to be really hard to get out of debt if you and your spouse aren't on board with getting out of debt, right? So knowing that you have all of these skills that a client needs to learn in order to truly get out of debt and not be reliant on you for exactly how to do it and what to do, but you are building that self-sufficiency, the confidence in that client, and the end result is getting out of debt, right? So the idea is that you write out all of these different skills that a person needs to learn. And then what you can start doing is bundling them up into a program model. So when somebody comes to you and you say, I'm going to help you get out of debt, but I'm going to make sure that I teach you all the skills so you either don't find yourself in debt again, or you feel confident in how you did it and you didn't just do it because Kelsa said this is how you do it, right? Like you're actually learning all the tools and tricks so that you can repeat that over and over and over again throughout your life. And really what you want to do is you want to look at those and say, how can I create a tool or an exercise or the conversation with my client around each of these exercises? And again, just like Ideal Client, creating content is like a whole nother video that I could do, which we will do at some point, but in due time sort of thing. So the idea is like, how do I create something instructional for my client on delayed gratification? How do I want to teach them about goal setting? How do I want to help them with communication with their spouse? And some of these might be just one session that you can teach it in. Other might take 3 or 4 sessions or 2 months or something like that. But the idea is you can bundle them all together and figure out, how many sessions do I need in order for this client to learn the true skill of being debt-free, right? And getting out of debt. So let's say it takes 4 months. Maybe you're like, okay, I need this many sessions and it's going to take me 4 months. That becomes your program. Your program might be different than my program that might be 6 or 7 months. Or maybe yours is, just getting on a plan for tackling their debt. And so maybe that takes 1 month and you're not diving into some of the mindset things. Maybe it's just the plan portion of it, that's what you want to help people with. And maybe that can take you 1 month. But the idea is that you base it all around the skills that you want to teach a person. And that determines how many sessions do you need in order to teach those skills. There's a great video in this group about a client journey, and it's a real example where I explain a true client that I had that signed up for a 7-month program with me. We were in month 5, and I kind of shared with you every session along the way, what we talked about and why. And one of the things that example illustrates is that there's always flexibility in these programs, just so you know. So like there might be a skill that's built into your program and you're like, man, this client is already really great at this. They're already doing this piece really well. And so we don't need to dive into it. I actually don't need to cover too much of this topic, but I will encourage you as their coach to let them know that you're not covering it because it's already a strength of theirs. Let them know that there's things they're doing right. Sometimes coaches early on, we focus on pointing out the flaws or things that they need to work on or improve on and sort of their weaknesses. It is equally as important to share with them all the things that they're naturally doing well. It will give them a huge boost of confidence. So don't just skip over something without letting them know that that's why you're skipping over it. Okay, so there's always flexibility in there. And some people will take 2 sessions to learn something, and that another person only needs 1 session, like they just can grasp it right away, and then other people maybe need a little bit more conversations around it. So there's always flexibility, but the idea is that you should be able to estimate, this is about how much time I need and how many sessions I need with a person, my ideal client, in order to help them overcome the chief problem that they're experiencing, right? And then you can also look at it and say, now, how often do I need to be meeting with them? And that really depends on how significant are the changes that you're encouraging them to make. So if it's something that's like really hard at the beginning, chances are they're going to have a lot of questions. If you try to spread your sessions out, so like 1 this month and then 1 the next month, but it's like every day or every week they're trying to do something new that you taught them, chances are they're going to be emailing you a lot or asking a lot of questions through email. My recommendation is to maybe do more frequent sessions at the beginning if you know that you're going to be getting a lot of questions because those changes are hard for a person. It will cut down on the amount of email coaching you do. Personally, I just don't feel like email coaching is quite as effective as like a phone call. And again, these don't have to be full 1-hour sessions. So maybe you kick off with an hour session and then the next week you're like, let's do a 30-minute check-in so I can answer any questions you have, and it's just over phone. And then a week later you do a 1-hour session to teach them sort of like the next step of their change. And then the week after that you do a 20-minute, check-in call or something like that. The idea is that you as their coach actually want to get ahead of a lot of those questions, or at least have a check-in point where you can properly answer all of those questions. So the idea is that instead of like waiting a whole month and they are asking all these questions through email, why not just do a quick session? So it doesn't have to be a whole 1-hour session every single time where you're teaching them a whole new concept. It can be to help them reinforce the changes, navigate any nuances or small changes they may need to make or alterations because it's, you as their coach are aware of those things. So it could be a lot more frequent at the beginning and then it slowly starts to spread out over time. So the idea there is to design that program. You might want to look at it as far as like, is there a particular milestone? So like at this point of all these exercises, they feel very different. They either think differently, they act differently, they've got new skills in place, and there's like a very clear sort of cutoff or milestone. That can be one program. The idea is like you can name the program accordingly. It's now easier to sort of like sell the benefits or the takeaways of that program. So it's easier to tell a client when you are talking about that program, here's exactly what you're going to gain from working with me for these next 5 months, 6 months, whatever it ends up being. You may not be out of debt in those 6 months, because the reality is we don't get to decide that as their coach, what their debt load is and what their income is and how quickly they can get out of debt. But we only have so much time to teach them all the skills that are needed in order to then sort of send them on their way to continuously get out of debt, right? So on their own, because now they have all the perfect skills in place. They don't necessarily need us anymore. Now, that is how you design your first program. The next question that you want to ask yourself is, after they reach this solution or they overcome this one problem or they hit a particular milestone, what happens next in that client journey? So what becomes the secondary problem that I know they are going to experience? Perfect example, if we keep this example going, is the debt payoff, situation. A person gets out of debt, and when they come to you and their goal is to get out of debt, they likely can't see a time of their life beyond the debt. So they're not really thinking like 3 steps out yet. They just want to get out of debt so badly. Like that is all they can usually like think about. But I know that once they're out of debt, or once they can see that like they're going to be out of debt pretty soon, let's say it's like 3 months out or 4 months out, and they can see their budget out in advance and all of that, they start to think beyond that. And it's amazing to me how the next step of a financial journey is typically the same for all of my clients, which is a completely different thought process from being in debt to being out of debt. So the idea is that when a person is in debt and they have extra money, it's a no-brainer. It's very black and white. There's not a lot of thought process. There's not a lot of critical thinking required. It's like, if you've got extra money, you pay down your debt with it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. It's very simple for people, right? In that way, like they're so motivated to get out of debt. And it's like just this no-brainer thing. Like if I've got extra money, I'm paying down this one credit card that I'm focusing on, and I am, head down focused. And then they're out of debt and they have extra money in their budget. And what they could do with that is sort of endless. There's like 4 different goals they want to achieve at one time. It doesn't feel as black and white. It doesn't feel as clear. It doesn't feel as easy. They now have to learn a whole new way of thinking about their goals. They've got to learn prioritization, how to plan out different goals and how they're connected. So if I do this goal first, does it actually make it so that goal number 2 is harder to achieve? And if I were to flip-flop them, I could actually achieve them both faster. That happens. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here, but that absolutely happens. You guys have probably seen that in your own budget. Where if you accomplish one goal now, but it involves like adding an expense or something like that, let's say buying a new house. Buying a new house oftentimes can increase your expenses in your budget, whether there's like a home repair fund, home renovation fund, furniture fund, those types of things that you're adding. And it makes it so the goal after that can be harder to achieve if more of your budget is going towards your house, right? But if you were to flip-flop those, like let's say save for an emergency fund and then buy the house, you're doing that before you have eaten up any discretionary income from your house. And my job at that point is to typically, paint that picture very clearly for that client. So I know that after they get out of debt, I know exactly the next problem that my client is going to have. I know the thoughts that are going to confuse them. I know the desires and how, like, chances are when they were getting out of debt, they were like putting off a lot of things. Maybe there's like a car repair that they, it wasn't necessary in the sense that it wasn't a safety issue, but like it really needs to get done. So there's like a whole bunch of things that all of a sudden now it demands their attention and their energy and their financial, discretionary amount and that sort of thing. And they're just not sure how to prioritize. So what I can do is take them from one program and say, okay, we're nearing the end of this. You want to celebrate. You want to do some things that are very congratulatory, and then say, we're getting close. Here's what's going to happen next. And we need to talk about moving forward into the next program. And here's the benefit of that program. Here's all the takeaways. Here's all the gains, because you're going to design that program the exact same way. So you now know the chief problem. what are all the skills that the client needs to learn in order to overcome that new set of challenges. So they need to learn a whole new set of goal setting skills. They need to learn a whole new set of prioritization. They need to maybe learn when things aren't black and white, how do you think critically about these things? Those are all things that you can teach in sort of like the advanced program, right? And you can set a price for that, you can set a cadence for that, and how many sessions you need in order to teach them and that sort of thing. So that is how you design a program, and then you can keep doing that over and over and over again, sort of like rinse and repeat. So when people ask us, how do your clients work with you for years? Because I've had clients have worked with me for 8 or 9 years pretty consistently, and coaches will ask me all the time, well, what do you talk about? Right? And this is what we talk about. We literally take them from one skill to the next to the next. There's times when we want to start thinking bigger picture with their money. We do dream budgets and retirement budgets, and we have like these bigger conversations that when the person is in debt and they're overwhelmed and they have a bill due on Friday that they can't figure out how to pay because they don't have the money and they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck, they can't even think about that other stuff yet. They're just not there. They need to sort of remove the chaos from their current situation first. So our first program does that. And then we can sort of say, now there's even more to do from here, right? And that is what determines how many sessions do you need to meet with clients? How long is the session? What frequency or pace of the sessions do you want to maintain? And I want to give you permission to experiment with this a little bit. So our program now has been in place for probably 4 or 5 years without any changes to it. But that doesn't mean that it was perfect from the get-go. It took me a little while to sort of figure out, what? In this week, I'm getting a ton of questions. So I'm going to add a 30-minute phone call with all of my clients this week to cut down on the amount of emails I'm responding to and that sort of thing, because I'm starting to see a pattern or I'm starting to see a trend. But that is something that you might have to add in or adjust later, and that is okay. So don't, tell yourself that if it's not perfect right away, you did it wrong. It's not going to be perfect right away. I promise you that, okay? So I'm going to dive into some of the questions here. So hi, Jesse. Hi, Gary. You guys are all waving at me. Jacqueline, Tyson, so many people. Sorry, I just can't talk and read comments at the same time. So Mandy says, I always say the same. If they need help on the income side, that isn't what I help with. I help those who make good money but need help managing the money they are already making. Awesome. I'm so glad, Mandy. I love that you have such confidence and clarity on like who you help, how you help them. I do think that it is, when you think about all the causes of a problem, I think it is very freeing. At least it is for me, because it's like, wow, like I can help a person who's experiencing this problem for this reason. And I'm not a bad coach if I can't help a person who is on the verge of bankruptcy maybe, or just filed bankruptcy or something like that. That is okay. I can refer them to other resources. And once you know that here's sort of the cause of a problem, and when I can't help them, let me think about all the things that are a better fit for them, whether it's a career coach or a resume writer, a recruiter, those types of things. Now I can build out my arsenal to be ready for that. I can say, here's an email that I always send out with all of the resources for you. This is going to be a better avenue for you. So it's my way of truly serving that client really well, and it makes my job a lot easier. Jessica says, I'm struggling with who I cannot help, especially now. Yeah, if you're not careful, you can find yourself, it's really difficult to build a business or, craft a program and all these things if you're always helping a different person every single type, of session, where it's like, this person's experiencing this, so I'm trying to help them. And then over here, I've got this other person who's experiencing something completely different. And so now I'm trying to design exercises and conversations and dialogue and a handout or whatever the case may be for this client over here. It can feel very overwhelming. It can feel very disjointed. It does help. It's not to say you can't do that eventually, but when you're first starting out, it's best, I promise you, it is best to pick a person that you can help, design and serve them so damn well. Like, know them inside and out, their desires, their fears, their challenges, the thoughts that they have, the worries they have, the things they do on the weekends, like really get to know them so intimately and serve them really well. And then once you get really good at that and it becomes just easy, you can do it with your eyes closed, then you can add on another type of program or another client. And then you just rinse and repeat. But you really don't want to try and do that all at the beginning where you're like, okay, here I'm over here and now I'm over here. It can just be really confusing. Jessica says, oh, I love thinking about all the little pieces that come before the end result. Great way to backwards plan of what to teach. Yes, exactly. It's like reverse engineering it, right? So like, here's the end result that they're after. Here is where they're coming to me. What is every skill that they need to learn from A to B? And it is not just like putting numbers in a spreadsheet. There are so many skills. You can talk about, keeping up with the Joneses and dealing with, conforming thoughts, feeling like you are conforming out of pressure. And these are all really great awareness pieces that you could add to your toolkit as a way of helping people. Jessica says, question, how much time do you spend on average per session teaching versus listening to the client talk about problems versus brainstorming solutions with them? It definitely depends on the type of exercise or the concept itself and like how technical in nature it is. So if you, are teaching something that has like a lot of research behind it or a lot of technical aspects to it, you might be teaching more and maybe it takes up the bulk of that, 45-minute session, but you're going to want to leave them with something to do between then and the next session. So whether that is research or reflection exercises, a worksheet where they, answer questions about what they think of that concept, you want them to have something where it's staying relevant from that session to the next session, when maybe you are having them take action or do something about that knowledge. So I always say that there is, and it's funny because the quote for the end of this video is actually really in line with this. Couldn't have planned it more perfectly, is there is teaching the client the concept, which is like, here's the definitions, or here's the terms you might hear, here's where this idea comes from, here's the different variations of this. And then there is making it relevant to the client and saying, here's why this is important for you. Here's why this is an important or significant aspect based on your financial journey. So you've got to find a way to not just teach it from a general perspective, but really find a way to make it relevant to the client. And then there is the commitment component, which is now that you understand this new concept and you understand why it's important to you, what are you going to do about it? What changes do you want to make based on this? What sort of commitment do you want to make? Is this, let's take net worth, for example. So they understand net worth. You teach them what that means. You teach them why it's important to them or why it is insightful for a person to know, specifically them. And then you can say, so what do we want to do about this? Do you want to calculate your net worth monthly? Do you want to do it once a year? What is the commitment around this concept that you just learned? So there's sort of like three different components, Jessica. There's the teaching, the relevance, and then the commitment. And that can, the teaching component itself can take sometimes 10 minutes if it's not that complex of a concept. And other times it can take a whole hour or it can take multiple sessions. So I teach a concept around passive learning versus active learning and helping clients to know when they are simply consuming knowledge but not necessarily doing about it and all the different reasons for that. And it's pretty robust. It is something that we are teaching in the toolkit. So all the questions we ask, the way we teach it, why it's important, why I believe that for my clients it's really important to understand when they're being a passive learner versus an active learner. And that can sometimes take 2 sessions just to have a conversation around it, just to understand all the ins, outs, and the thought processes and the mindset and the things that are holding them back. And then there are ones that take 10 minutes, right? So a lot faster. But really the idea is, I will oftentimes have an agenda in mind for the session. So like I kind of know, here's what we talked about last and here's where we need to go next. So the nice thing about having a program design is it is flexible, but it also helps you, the coach, to sort of stay on task and like keep moving the client forward. If you can tell, Jessica, that the session, let me back up a second. I think what happens is if the client doesn't understand or realize that you, the coach, have an idea in place for the session, and you have sort of this outline for like helping them to make progress, and that if they question that you are the leader that is guiding them through a process, they're going to come to the session feeling as if they need to have something for you, that they need to bring a problem to you to help them solve. And I find that this happens maybe because the coach isn't showing up confidently as the leader of the financial change. And what I mean by that is sort of like taking control right away and letting them know that there is a purpose to the meeting. I will often say, especially, after a month, let's say, of many sessions, I will say, I have some things that I'd like to talk about today, but first, before I do that, is there anything that you need help tackling? Is there any questions you have? Is there any concerns you have that you want to run by me? I always like to tackle those first, but if not, I definitely have some things we can talk about. So I like to set the stage that way because it is important to address their problems, and it is important to listen first and foremost and make sure that you are using them to sort of determine, can I keep pushing right now, or do I need to just kind of take a step back and allow them time to digest what we've already done? Like maybe they're still feeling some growing pains and that sort of thing. And so I always like to check in with them, but if you're not careful with the way you word that, they're going to think that they need to find a way to make the most of that 1 hour. And oftentimes that can look like them bringing problems to you. So I hope that helps, Jessica. Let's see. Brittany says to Mandy, this comment was so freeing. One of my fears has been what to say or how to help a client that's having an income problem. Yeah, and I think there are some coaches on here, so I don't want to say that like my way is right and anyone else's is wrong. Like there are some coaches who are amazing at helping people, find a new job, get their income up, those sorts of things. It's not my area of expertise personally. So it's one of those things where understanding like, here's who I'm really great at helping, and here's where I either just don't love it as much, or I feel like the impact that I can have is smaller than the impact I want to have. And there's just people that are better at that than I am. And I'm totally okay with that. And I do think it helps a lot, Brittany. I think a lot of these things can be so freeing, right? Like having this process laid out, seeing the journey that you're going to put a client through really helps you to value that program so much more. Chances are you're going to be able to command a higher price because you feel more confident in what you're going to deliver, as opposed to sort of winging it. Jessica says, yes, Toolkit. I am so excited about this. Yes, I am excited about it too. I was loving all the comments on Jill's video from last week. If you guys have not taken a look at that yet or had a chance to watch it, please watch it. She does sort of explain what the toolkit is, so I won't take any time to do that now, but it's a good video. She addresses sort of like, are people buying right now, and how should you be pricing yourself right now as a financial coach, because we know that there are a lot of people hurting and that sort of thing, and she addresses that head on. So that's why we wanted her to do the video last week. Please take a look at that if you have not yet, because I know we've been getting a lot of that question as well. So I hope this makes sense. Some other characteristics of a program that you may want to just think about when you are outlining like the number of sessions you need and that sort of thing, is the delivery of that. So is it, a private session? Are there pieces of that you can deliver in a video, like the teaching part, and then they watch the video before they come to a session, and then they come to the session where you help them with making that concept relevant and also helping them to firm up their commitment to that new concept, right? So like you could do that aspect and really cut down and leverage your time better. That's a really great tip for those coaches who are getting busier. Your time is becoming more crucial. You're maybe helping more clients now. And the idea is that you really need to find a way to scale as best as possible. And oftentimes the teaching part of the concept is something that you can record a video on and just send it out to the client right before their session or like the week before their session and say, hey, I need you to listen to this or watch this before your session. We're going to have a discussion about it, right? It's a great way of really leveraging your own time. So the delivery, you could also do group for a portion of it. You could have like an online sort of training vaults is what I used to have a long time ago, where I had all of these videos parked and I would just tell them like, it's this video, you need to go watch that before your next session sort of thing. Make sure that you are really clear of sort of those benefits and the takeaways that the client's going to gain from those sessions. So again, it's not just when I'm selling you my program, it's not that you get 12 sessions in 4 months. It's you're going to feel like X in 4 months. You're going to be able to think about it this way or feel better, or you're going to have an understanding of how to do X. And it's like a skill that they're going to gain. And I know that now because my program is based on their key takeaways, not just the number of sessions, right? It's a really common sort of philosophy amongst business coaches and that sort of thing that nobody buys your time. So nobody wants an hour of Kelsa's time. So like, here's an hour, there you go. What they want is to feel better after that session. They either want a takeaway, they want a solution, they want to have skills in place, they want to feel better. And that is what people want to pay for, right? So if I can get that done in 3 months or 6 months, then that's what I'm selling to the person, right? Not just the number of sessions that they get with me. So you also want to think about that for the cost of the program. Payment plan options. Do they get email support or do they get cell phone access? And these are just things that you can pick and choose whatever is right for you. So I personally, you guys know this, I say this all the time, terrible writer. I don't enjoy writing. I personally don't think I'm great at email coaching. I don't feel like I get my point across as well. And so I try to eliminate that as best as possible in my program design, just because I know it's not something I enjoy and I don't feel like I'm great at it. And it takes me 10 times longer to type up an email versus trying to just do a 10-minute phone call with somebody and guide them through it. So I designed my program to cut down on the amount of email questions I get. So I'm going to add in a 15-minute check-in call in a week where I think they might have questions, instead of just not providing anything, knowing that I'm probably going to get email questions, and that just seems to take me longer. Same with cell phone access. For a long time, I was fine giving out my cell phone. Now that I've got 2 young kids and work-life balance and having boundaries on my time is like more important than ever, I don't give my cell phone to anybody. So, you can make that choice for yourself. I give you permission to do that. If you just don't want to do that early on, right from the get-go, if you're like, work-life balance is important to me, you don't have to have kids to care about work-life balance. It was just sort of the motivator for me that like really helped me to step up those boundaries for myself. But you could do it. I kind of wish I would have done that earlier on, actually, was like not give out my cell phone to people. But you can absolutely decide if that's a piece of your program that you want to offer. So I hope all of this helps you guys to really figure out how to, there's more questions. Holly says, hello, sweet Kelsa. Love this video. You are speaking to me directly. I'm so glad. Let's see. Alta says, I don't like writing either. Go figure that I actually published a book. But for those of you who were part of the book pre-order Q&A session, you know that I hired a ghostwriter and I did videos just like this and sent them to my ghostwriter, and she put it into words for me, because that book never would have been done if it was left to me to officially write the words on it. Let's see. Adriana says, cannot wait for the toolkit. I feel like it will give me the structure or framework that will help me teach what comes so naturally and easy to me that makes it so hard for me to write it out. Not my zone of expertise. Yeah, I mean, and that does make sense. So the idea is like, here's all the exercises that we've added into our programs over the years. Here's the handout we use. Here's the questions we ask. Here's when we introduce this concept. Here's what we're looking for. Here's some of the key takeaways we're after. And I think there's like 58 different exercises in the toolkit. So quite a few. And you can imagine some exercises take 1 session, and some concepts take 3-4 sessions to teach. And the idea, so if there's 58 of them, I mean, you can work with a client for years and cover all 58 exercises. And these are just the ones we do. I have no doubt, you guys are amazing financial coaches. I have no doubt that you are teaching things that we don't teach our clients. So even if you just take 40 of those and add them to what you're already doing, you're going to be able to coach clients for years and years, which is a beautiful business model, because one of the issues with financial coaching is this idea that you have to build self-sufficiency in our clients, which is true, yes, but the reality is that financial progress is never complete. We are going to be on a financial journey our whole lives, is what I believe. So once I learn one skill or I hit one milestone, I likely just need to learn something new. It's time to dive in deeper to another concept. And so the idea is that by having this robust toolkit, I can work with clients for years and years, which means I then can focus more of my attention on serving current clients and less of it on going out and finding more clients. If you build a program design and it's 6 months long and then you're just done after 6 months and you're like, okay, I'm sending you on your way, you're all done, you're always trying to go out and find new clients every 6 months, right? Which is not terrible. It's just can be a little exhausting, right? And I think we all got into business as a financial coach to help people, not to necessarily spend 40 hours a week marketing, right? So some of you love it and you're great at it and you do Instagram stories and you go live on your Facebook just like I am. And there's pieces of that you probably truly enjoy, but it doesn't mean that we want to be doing it all the time. We really want to be serving our clients well. And it cuts down on the pressure we feel to always go out and get the next client. It is also why with Fiscal Fitness, with this model, we can make it so that at some point you have a full client load. You actually don't need another client, another new client. So you have your full client load. They stay on for years and years and years. You just keep serving them really well. You have these deeper relationships. You're getting amazing results that you can see. So it's very gratifying. And then we can hire another coach to start serving all of the new clients, which we are officially hiring our new coach in May. We've already been in talks. It's official. She is starting in May. I will announce that here soon. And the reality is that Jill now has a full client load. So she started with Fiscal Fitness a few years ago. I think a few years ago. I should probably know how long ago that was. Feels like she's been with us forever. So I don't remember, and I don't like to think about the time before I had Jill on my team. But it took a few years, but now Jill has a full client list. So any new client that comes on is going to go to the new coach, and we're going to build the same thing with the new coach. So it's a really beautiful concept, and it's also why I can serve all of you, because I have my full client list and I continue to serve them really well, but I don't need to go out and hustle for new clients myself. So I can replace that time by serving all of you with the Financial Coach Academy or the symposium or designing the toolkit and all of that stuff. So to me, it's a beautiful business model, and it all comes back to designing your program and thinking about it from what's the first problem I'm going to help them solve and what are all the skills they need in order to learn and truly solve that problem. And then once we solve that problem, what's the next problem they're going to experience? Because guess what? There will be another one. There will. And then after we solve that problem, what's the next one? And I'm just going to keep helping my clients up level their financial position. And guess what? You don't have to have all of this figured out right now. Chances are you will grow as a coach as your clients grow with you. And that is so cool. Your clients will ask questions and you'll think, you know what? That's a great question. Let me do some digging. Let me do some research, and let's table this and we'll talk about it at your next session. And in that between those two sessions, you're crafting another skill that you can teach your other clients. And it's just additional tools in your toolkit. All of these 58 exercises that are in the toolkit took me years to create, you guys. It was not something that I just designed right away. It takes years, but this is the process that I figured out along the way, because nobody ever taught me how to create something out of nothing. I would hear people say, you need to have a program. You need to have a program. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, great. But how? How do you design it? This is how. Okay. So I reversed engineered it and give you guys those step-by-steps of how to create that. Please let me know what questions you have. And like I said, when you see somebody ask a question about how many sessions do you guys book, or how much time in between sessions do you have for your clients, tag them in this video so they can find it quickly, direct them to it. So that way they're getting the thought process behind designing a program and not just the answer of what we've designed. Okay. So I hope this helps. I want to end with a quote, because I always like doing that. Knowing something is not the same as doing something. I hope that helps. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will talk to you later. Bye, everybody.